to read through those, and then we'll approve them at our next meeting. Does anyone have a problem with that? Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Perfect. So we'll just hold on approving our minutes just so everyone has a chance to read through them. Staff comments, Nicole?
None. I'll wait till the community meeting part to speak.
Alrighty. So we'll move on to item 1, public comment. So Nicole sent over that link that showed all of the most recent comments that we've received. Thank you to everyone who sent in comments.
And then a couple that I got between Saturday and today I sent to you guys, but just so the community can hear at home, those were not updated on the website yet, but the commission did see everyone who wrote in over the weekend up till 40 minutes ago. So.
Perfect. So, I mean, we can open up the conversation on this. Definitely, we've received more feedback from Delta. I did see one of the ones we received later was from someone from a different neighborhood, but yeah, we're getting a lot of really good feedback. Does anyone have any comment on this?
Well, so how many comments have we had so far?
I don't have a running tally. Simone, are you looking, or do you want me to count?
I was looking to see. I thought they were all each on their own page, so I was like, oh, that's easy to figure out. Let's see.
You can just count the red received one.
Yeah.
Red line at the top.
I think including the emails, it looks like 24, but I don't know if that's probably not what's on, because there's 2 comments that were emailed right after the document was created, like recent ones.
I thought there was 3, but
I counted 22 in the packet online, and then I think we received at least 3 more. So maybe we're at 24 or 25.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious because out of those, I mean, like over 20 of them were people that were talking about the East Side District. Well, I mean, what's our plan if that ends up being what we hear at a lot of the public forums as well? I'm just curious, I guess, also from Tony and then also from the commissioners, what would be our plan if that happens? Because that's more than just a minor adjustment.
Tony, you want to start?
On your site, Tony, do you want to answer what that could look like?
Sure. I think we would have to deliberate. We'd have to go back. We'd have to look at the other option, which is the alternative plan going south, and make a decision. And so that's the way we would do it no matter what. I mean, the whole idea is that we would receive comments and input from the public, and the public can shape the configuration of the district. But the final decision is made with the commission. So,
on that note, I recall Mary stating last week or 2 weeks ago that we would have to come out with a strong statement, one way or the other, at least talking about our position there, since we are leaning in, I would assume that we're still leaning in the direction of the configuration 8B, is it? We're still leaning in that direction, but with showing an alternate map that had that irregular district on there, or several irregular districts on there, and explain it based upon that, rather than, because I just don't see at this point there, with 20 plus comments that are saying, hey, we need to do something with the Delta neighborhood. I think that we have to be able to come up with, and And I believe that it's quite easily defensible. It is not something that is so onerous that we just have to be truthful with people and just say, hey, look, here's what we're looking at. This is what we're posing. But if you look at the actual numbers that we're talking about, because Delta is never going to be in a district by themselves, period, point blank, exclamation mark. I didn't actually hear them saying that that's what they wanted to do, but they did want to carve out a district that was favorable to the folks that are on the east side, which totally understandable. It is totally understandable. But at the same time, if I'm looking and reading those numbers correctly, they actually, they actually outnumber the Northwest neighborhood 3-1. If we're really looking at this, they already outnumber them 3-1. I understand that there is this preponderance. Well, I'm not going to make that argument. I'm just looking at it and saying, hey, I just think that we just need to either sit down and just make a definitive statement and saying this is the reason why. We may still have another opportunity to just come back and revisit this. But I think at this point, we really should be prepared to talk about why we arrived at this decision, period, point blank.
We have some unfinished matters with A8 that at some point we'll need to take up after the public meetings. We're going to hear folks, we're going to hear their comments and suggestions, and then we're going to have to reconvene again and make some decisions. I was appointed to have an open mind, not have any parochial interest, but to do what's best for the city. And I agree with Ben. I agree with his comments. And at this point, I'm not going to be swayed by the number of letters or by the number of folks that turn out at a public meeting. I'm going to make decisions based on what makes sense for the entire city, and I've made that comment before, and I'm committed to that. I don't have an interest, a conflict of interest of any kind.
And what's the point of public comment?
Well, there may be something that we will learn from folks that will help us with an adjustment to A8. I don't know that public comments are going to call for an entire wholesale change of the work we've done. I mean, otherwise, everyone should go out and contact their neighbors and ask them to submit letters, and we can all do that. But that's not what we are supposed to do. We're here to take the information and make decisions. And at this point, we've got more work to do before we arrive at a final conclusion. We've done a lot of work to get A8 in a position to be able to take it forward, and let's hear what people have to say.
That's right.
I think too, like, we weren't just brought together to look at data. That's what we have Tony for. We have Tony here to be our person who's going to look at the data and make sure that we don't get our butts sued. But we need to be listening to the community and using our knowledge of people who are from here to figure out what are common communities in our city. How should we combine these in a way that makes the most sense? I don't think A8 accomplishes that. I think it's, when you look at the data, the best option, but that's not what we were brought here for. So it's something to keep in mind, that we kind of want to use that community input and our knowledge of people that live here to make that best map.
I want to say this. We all live in this city. We all live in this community, and a lot of us have been here an awful long time. And we are focusing, you've got your focus on one neighborhood. Take what we have out to the entire city and let the city decide. We don't focus on one neighborhood, and that's exactly what you're wanting to do. And we're not ignoring people. We want everybody in this city of Everett to be valued. And if you're not careful, you talk about being sued, gerrymandering will step right into what you're talking about. Let's take it to the community. Let's think about the entire city of Everett and not just one neighborhood that we're focusing on.
And this is Flora Diaz from Legal. And just briefly, the notice requirements for districting is structured to assume that if there are any modifications that the commission votes to make to the proposed districting plan after the public forums, then the new modified plan would be published and in the newspaper, and I'm sure we put on the website and published in other areas as well. And then the comment on that would be written comment only. It wouldn't be another set of public forums. So just noting that if the commission after the public forums does vote to adjust the map, there would be another round of publishing and notice and written public comments on that.
Thank you, Flora.
November 4th.
This is Kari. May I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, so 24 of 100,000 is not even a percentage point of the city's population. Next Monday, Nicole, myself, and Simone will be going to the Council of Neighborhoods, of which 19 will be there, or 17, or whatever's active right now. And we will propose, we will give them the information of how they can submit public comment. Because realistically, I would like, as I have continued to say, hearing from the other neighborhoods across the city. And the more that I, again, think about the North End being a district, I think it's appropriate and I think it's right. And I also spent a lot of time looking at the data. I know that Tony provides that to us, and thankfully he does, because Bayside can help Delta in terms of renters and diversity and other things. Riverside can help Delta. It's a 3-to-1 if you go against Northwest. What I think drives me batty, and I'm just going to say it one more time, is that there's a lot of emphasis in these public comments about historical context of Everett. And I'm tired of the history. I'm tired of the patriarchy. I could go all day. What I would like to see is that we look forward. We look collectively. We look holistically at how the city is based and functions, and we stop blaming and we start getting people to vote. Because realistically, when I look at the map, when it's lengthened, what it does for Delta or Riverside or Lowell is it puts them in one district with one possibility of one person. With our plan of District 1 and 2, they get two possibilities. That's right. Because you would have potentially someone from Lowell or Riverside or Port Gardner, they're in the middle there too, could be part of that tied to Delta. So there's actually two possibilities of two seats. To me, it's short-sighted to go for a long, skinny district. And I've also talked to other neighbors in my side that, again, our landlords are the same around the North End. And I forgot to mention Burlington, Northern Santa Fe. We all deal with the train. So again, I would love to move forward with this plan as we have it, go out for public comment, let people rip us to shreds or not, but to have it be more than 24-ish from one neighborhood. I would like to see more from Northwest. I'd like, again, casino, all of them. There was one that came in today that addressed casino being called Westmont or something like that, but they liked what we had done so far. And I was like, yay, we got one that's different. I really would like us to just put it out there. We've justified, we've gone through decisions, and let's see what the public comment is when we get to people in a room and they can talk to us instead of writing in their stuff. So again, there's my piece. Thank you very much.
Are there any more comments? Go ahead. I'm ready to jump in. I've been working on this public meeting process all weekend, so I'm ready.
Okay. If there's no more comments on the public comments, we'll move on to item 2, community meeting proposal.
So I sent everyone an email that asks you about the dates and times for those public comments. And so I want to start there. I have a wonderful new piece of software called Microsoft Project that I've been putting all of this into, and I'm very excited about. So that's been fun. A little update from me. So is there any issues with the September 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 17th for our meeting days right now? Yay! So, and then is there any comment on the time frames that I suggested to all of you? Is there any modifications that we should discuss or anything like that? I did get a lot. I of course met with our small committee, so thank you guys very much for giving me more of your time. I know that this commission has already taken up a lot, so thank you very much. And I did get some phone calls from people who had some great suggestions about how to spread these meetings. So I did my best to take all of what I heard and come up with what I thought was a decent compromise. So if there's any times or days or stacking that we don't like, and by stacking I mean time stacking, like the one on the same day, not packing and cracking and stacking like Tony talks about, is there any conversation that needs to be had there?
So just to clarify, these meetings are all Microsoft Team meetings. There is no requirement that we have them in a physical spot or in 5 different physical spots.
Thank you. That would be my next thing to cover. So right now, the Open Public Meetings Act has been extended through, or the Open Public Meetings Act extension has been approved through September 1st. Through multiple conversations with the governor's office and our legal department and myself trying to figure out how to accommodate a hybrid of just in case physical location and an online platform that makes sense, it doesn't. And so we really do not believe that the governor will be allowing or encouraging people to meet in groups. If that does happen, we will tap into our city park system and we'll figure out how to have a physical location in each district. But through the conversations, like I said, I've had, it seems pretty far-fetched that is going to happen. And so I'm focusing my energies on creating an online for the community. So if you guys don't feel comfortable with that or want to do something, that's okay too. That's just my best judgment call from where I sit.
Well, if it is changed from September, Nicole, I don't know that necessarily means that we have to change. I think we should see what the Everett City Council decides to do. You know, all along, I didn't understand why they were going to have virtual meetings, and we kept talking about something else. So as long as this is in effect, I support the plan that you've all put together in these dates.
Nicole, I did notice, so we have the second meeting we have from 8:30 to 10. So are the other ones going to be like, is the 5 to 7, we're doing 1.5-hour meetings, right?
2-hour meetings.
Okay, we are doing 2-hour meetings.
Yeah, they're 2-hour meetings, and I structured it so, you know, at first I thought they were going to have to be 3 hours in order to accommodate everything we needed, but I really appreciate the committee, specifically Chris, kind of pushing back on me and saying, well, you know, take another look and see what you can come up with. And so I managed to narrow them down to 2-hour meetings, and I discussed the 90-minute public comment stretch with our legal department. They're very comfortable with that 90 minutes, 6 meetings at 90 minutes of public comment each is sufficient. So that was really nice to hear. You know, that will allow about 100 people to give public comment. So I think that we more, you guys decide that time is not sufficient, we can stay later or host one more.
I'm sorry,
but I think
I didn't hear what you said. Could you say that again, Nicole?
Where did I cut off?
I didn't, like your last 2 sentences. I was having a hard time.
I just said that it'll equal out. I did the math and giving each person 3 minutes to speak and then a possible 2-minute response. So 5 minutes. That equals to be about 93, 94 people able to provide public comment in all of our meetings. And so that's a pretty hefty amount, more than we've gotten at any other public hearing or meeting that I'm aware of. So I think that is, and if that is not the right amount of space or not enough space, then we can revisit that idea of a 7th meeting. Like if I get 300 people that RSVP, then obviously we'll need to reevaluate. But I will be very impressed if we fill every time slot on all 6 of our meetings.
Then my only other comment is that our second one we have as only an hour and a half. So we'd either need to start it at 8 or end it at 10:30 because just the second one's an hour and a half.
It should be 8:30 to 10:30. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I just was like, I couldn't remember where we landed on the 90-minute thing.
So it sounds like we, at this point, will have 100% participation from all of the commissioners at these meetings, or at least we feel like we can accommodate. So that is like the biggest lift. So I'm so excited. Thank you, everyone. That's great. And I now want to just share my outline with you. So yes, save that. So I sent you a rough agenda of how the small group saw these meetings running, and then I broke that into more specific details. So I just want to run through this with you just to make sure that everyone is on the same page and we understand how these meetings will roll. So Simone will be our MC. We'll obviously have staff and a legal representative at these meetings, all of you, and then the community. So I broke this into agenda items and expectations or roles. We have Simone will do, she's going to MC. So it was the small committee's recommendation that we try to keep this a little bit more casual and Q&A and not just the community providing comment and us not responding at all. So it'll be Simone's job to keep a conversational environment, keep the community and commission to very strict time limits, instruct us when support is needed, and work with staff to organize speakers. So we'll work with Simone on how many people have RSVP'd, their time slots, maybe they provided written comment, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be there and Flora, and so we'll support the chair, keep the meeting organized, track comments, keep time, respond to community when appropriate. And then I put beneath that the expectations of the meeting. So the meetings will last 2 hours. They'll be 90-minute for public comment or Q&A. Each speaker will get 3 minutes, allowing 2 minutes for either Tony or a commissioner to respond. And if it's going to take more than that, we'll figure out how to provide either a written comment or another avenue, whatever we come up. The community will stay muted until recognized to speak. Tony will be our primary Q&A lead, but the commission will also participate as it makes sense. Each engagement shall not exceed 5 total minutes. I put that in there a lot of times throughout this document. Comments will be tracked and community encouraged to provide written comment in addition to speaking at meetings. So if someone to speak more than once, for example, you cannot RSVP to District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can only RSVP to and speak at one community meeting as to make sure we get to hear from 100 different individuals. But if you provide comment and you want to elaborate on that, or you want to change your mind or provide something different, we will be accepting written comment throughout the entire process. So people can provide follow-up or elaborations on whatever they choose. So the commission, you guys will do an introduction to try to encourage that conversational environment. So you'll just say, Hi, my name is Nicole Weber, and I'm from Delta Neighborhood. Thank you for being here. It shouldn't take more than 40 seconds per commissioner. Your role is to listen to comments, respond when appropriate, and attend most or all of the meetings. So it was decided by the small group that we should strive to have a minimum of 6 commissioners at each meeting. It is the preference to have everyone at every single meeting. Tony's role is to present a very short version of the districting map presentation, which will be about 15 minutes, give people a little bit of 2 minutes of who he is and what his job is. I know that'll be hard, Tony, because you presented so much material, but you can do it. And it's my opinion that he should highlight the commissioner's draft map and the reason for the boundaries that you came up with. And I'd love to take suggestions on that if you don't agree. So that's something we can talk about. He's the lead response on Q&A, and he'll probably in some way track his own comment, or we'll work together to have one tracking system that we both use. He'll have follow-up meetings with the commission to deliberate, as he stated earlier, and he will make changes directed by the commission following those follow-up deliberations. The community's role is to respect the rules set by Simone and staff, keep the phone muted until recognized to speak, provide feedback or questions to the commission lasting no longer than 3 minutes, comment at one meeting only, and provide additional written comment as desired. So that's my full breakdown of roles, responsibilities, and how I see this panning out. Tony is going to pre-record his presentation that will be much longer than 15 minutes with PIPA. And we are going to get that, we're going to get it translated into Spanish, and then I'll have subtitles on his presentation. And we're getting that rolling here in the next 2 weeks. So that will be finished early so that we can get it up on the website so people can start watching it far before we have these meetings. And I do have an outreach plan as well. I won't show you that spreadsheet, but just to run over how we plan to publish these meetings and let the community know about them is we're going to put them on the website. We do have a community emailing list that we're going to use. We're going to have flyers. We're going to utilize the library and the books that they're giving out to the community. We're going to do a neighborhood update, which Kari just spoke on. We're going to try to utilize the school district in any news flash or flyers that they have. The Herald, we're going to write a press release in addition to the publishing that we're required to do. Council is going to also let the community know during their meetings. So we'll work with Council President Tui to put that announcement in her opening comments. And then we'll have the video recording on the website. And we'll also use social media blasts to let people know. And that is what I have. I'm going to ask people to RSVP within a 5-day window for each meeting. But, people will RSVP as they can, but there will even be some type of guidelines on when the best time is to RSVP for each meeting so that I can try to stay as organized as possible. Comments, concerns, suggestions, improvements.
That all sounds really good, Nicole. I don't have any comments or suggestions on anything we should do differently. I think that all sounds great.
This is Kari. Thanks to the subcommittee for working through the dates and all of that, and then great details, Nicole. This sounds wonderful.
Great. And so, Tony, would you agree that what I have highlighted for your presentation focus for that 15 minutes intro at the beginning of each meeting makes, or does anyone else have a comment on what information during that 15 minutes they'd like to see Tony present to the community?
You want me to chime in?
Yeah.
I've taken a look at it, and this weekend really in detail, and I think there should be some background and some plan development process in the beginning, just to tell individuals what we did and the process we went through, because I think people are probably now engaging into this thing called redistricting or districting for Everett. They probably haven't been engaged before. And so we can't expect them to know the process we've been through. So I think talking about the process, and I've already done some draft videos, and then go into each of the districts and focus on describing the district, and then the rationale for the district configuration. And that's sort of the crux of, okay, how do we come to this configuration? And that's it. So it'd be basically those two things, the background, development process, and then each district will have some description associated with it. And I've done somewhat of a draft, and I've come up to about 14 minutes. So I can. At first, I didn't think I could do it. I still think there are some holes there, but we can probably.
Hopefully they watch that meeting before, or hopefully they watch that big presentation beforehand, or watch it after and then provide written comment following.
Now, when you say big presentation, are you saying there'll be 2 videos?
Yeah, so what we discussed was you having a full 40-minute presentation that walks through start to finish everything that we've done. And then at the beginning of each meeting, we'll do a 15-minute recap that allows people to do, it's like a refresher or a summary course that helps them just get in the game.
So the 40-minute will be a video they can watch ahead of time. The 15-minute would be
ideal, but I did in my notes write 40-minute video.
Okay.
So
okay, and then the 15-minute video would be what I just described, condensed down to 14 minutes or so. Okay.
Yeah, and so you've got time to expand in that bigger one, and then in that smaller one is just a recap for the community.
So, and I hate to talk details now. We mentioned this week, or I mentioned this week, for the video being due. That's for both videos?
No, so your live one that you'll do at the beginning of all of the video, at the beginning of the presentations, that one can come later. It's the really robust one that we need done sooner rather than later. And Pipa, what's your hard deadline if you're listening right now?
I will adjust to Tony, so I would, the sooner the better, but I will go by your timing.
Okay.
I think we had highlighted the 14th, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So your deadline for us is the 14th. So if I get the video by Wednesday, I'll just work really hard to get it to Nicole by the 14th. Or if you get it to me, Tony, by the day before the 14th, I will work really hard to get it to Nicole.
And I don't need it really, Pipa, I would say, but until the 18th. So that gives us a little bit of buffer space there too.
And the second video.
So the long one, the big one.
Right, the second video, the due date for that.
If you could have the 40-minute video done by the 12th or 14th, that would be great. And there's no quick turnaround on that, Pipa. 18th, 19th is fine. And then the short 15-minute video really doesn't need to be edited and finished until probably the 1st of September. As long as it's done by the 1st, that's great, because our first meeting isn't until the 10th, which is when that short video will run. Okay. So I'm glad that we talked about that. Sorry, guys. Get some clarity. Everyone's got their jobs down.
On that video, just to have clarification, can we add like 1 or 2 lines in the very beginning about like the background as far as Everett voted for this and why they voted for that, so people are clear on the purpose of what we're doing?
Oh yeah, and we could even add that to Simone's introduction. It might be a little bit more of a personal touch and just her minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
her minutes to 3, instead of one, and she can do the welcome and explanation of kind of how we got here. I think that's a great idea.
Don't mean to pile on your plate.
No worries.
I like that idea.
Yeah. And that'll kind of start that.
Tony, in either your background or your process, you will be sure to identify the requirements that we need to satisfy, right?
Absolutely.
Because things go a whole lot easier when you start off with talking requirements and you focus on satisfying the requirements.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right. You're right on.
Okay. So, and then that is all I needed from you guys. So that was so easy. I expected a much bigger conversation on that, and people having to change dates and all kinds of stuff. So that was wonderful. And then we have Ramsey here from our legal department, who's going to just run again through the Open Public Meeting Act with us before we, go into these open public meetings, and also answer any questions that we might have on them. I know one was if we needed to have people or spaces in person. So Ramsey, if you're there, I'll let you take over.
Okay. Am I coming through? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you all. I'm going to go through a few slides. Hopefully I can figure out how to share my screen with y'all. And some of this it's all going to be somewhat review. There's a couple new things just based on how the, okay, can you guys see the PowerPoint start there?
Yes.
Okay. But really, obviously, the point here is to get questions, to questions. So, okay. So, starting through on this, it's always important with the Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act, for that matter, is to remember that public perception is what matters. And so it's obviously compliance with the law is important, but if the public doesn't think you're complying with the law, then you're really undercutting the whole benefits of open public meetings and creating distrust. So always thinking about these things. You guys don't do executive sessions, but just, always be concerned on just how decisions are made. Sometimes, everyone's all simpatico, everybody's thinking the same. But if the public just sees a decision made without discussion, that brings suspicion. Social gatherings, I guess I could take that out of the show. But just generally just thinking, remember the benefit of open government is it allows us to build public trust, but that only works if we're thinking about perception. So with that in mind, obviously, all meetings have to be open to the public, but because of the governor's proclamation, the in-person requirement has been suspended. So under the governor's proclamation, that prohibits large gatherings, is then waived the requirements of the OPMA that we have in-person meetings, and that is why we are doing these things virtually today and also planning these to be virtual. As Nicole mentioned, the current most recent proclamation expires on September 1st, but it's hard to imagine the governor won't extend it. The way it works is that the governor has to get approval of the leaders of the Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate. And so there's, a little bit of political gamesmanship, which is why it always seems to come down to the last minute. But I expect it will be extended, so we'll continue to have this going. And so obviously, even if it is not extended, all that will mean is that we merely have to have a place where members of the public can listen to the meeting and participate in person. It does not mean that you have to be there in person. You could still attend that meeting remotely. Members of the public can still attend it remotely. It just means there just has to be a physical location where people can come and listen to the meeting. So, depending on how things go, even if it doesn't get extended, you can at least take comfort. It doesn't mean you have to go join a crowd. It just means that we have to have that option so people can join the crowd. But like I said, I think it'll be extended, and this is all kind of not from the So when we talk about a meeting, remember that a meeting is any time action occurs. It doesn't just mean final action, it's action. And action then is broadly defined to include any discussion, deliberation, or any time the commission takes public input. So obviously these community meetings are subject to the OPMA requirements, both because you'll be presenting information to the public, but also because you'll be intaking public comment. I think the most important and trickiest concept in the OPMA is this concept of serial meetings. So it's kind of obvious when all of you guys get together and talk about something, that's going to be a meeting. But the law also extends, and as you'll recall these examples from before, I mentioned after the 2008 financial crash, the mayor announced that he was going to have closed-door meetings with each individual council member to figure out what their budget priorities are. That's an example of a serial meeting, because you're having a group of meetings that, while individually don't include everybody, collectively they do. Another example that I mentioned before was out of Yakima, and here I think this is something to definitely be aware of. In this case, what happened is a private citizen got together with a majority of the council individually to get them all on board. And because those council members knew that the citizen was, making this effort, that's going to potentially be a serial meeting too. So a serial meeting, the definition is a series of communications that don't individually include a quorum, but in combination they do involve a quorum, and there's some type of collective intent. So with the Yakima example and the private citizen, if the private citizen had gone to those council members individually, but had not informed the other council members he was doing it, it may not have been an illegal serial meeting. That collective intent is important, but it can involve, so it can involve you guys, meeting one-on-one with each other, creating a quorum, but it also can have a third party involved in it to create it. And it can be any type of combination. It could be some phone calls, some email exchanges, some exchanges on social media, some, conversations with staff, any combination of those. If it involves a majority of the commission and there is, some type of something that can be called collective intent, that's going to be an illegal serial meeting. With emails specifically, we have more case law on this, and what they say is that if you have if an email goes to the full commission and you end up with a majority providing substantive input on that issue, that's where you're going to find the majority requirement and probably a collective intent. So one-way email to the entire commission isn't going to be a problem, but it's when people start replying, even if they only reply to the sender and don't hit reply all, if a majority of the commission replies to the sender, that could be an illegal meeting, which is why we discourage having anything substantive discussed on emails. Executive session, again, you guys don't really do it, but the important thing is with executive session is to know is that there are very specified grounds that allow you to go into executive session, and the conversation that occurs in executive session has to be limited to those specified topics, and there can't be any straw voting or secret voting or anything in executive session. You don't make any decisions in there. You're just getting input and information at those executive sessions. You do have to keep, of course, what you learn in executive session confidential. So if there are violations, just a reminder, probably the most significant here for you all is that any final action that is taken in an illegal meeting can be void. And that can potentially be, if you have an illegal meeting in a preliminary step, you could end up voiding a final action later on. So the courts are going to look at where the significance of that illegal action in the process. Elected officials can be subject to recall. That's not going to affect you. If you know you're violating the law, the individual commissioners can be fined $500 for the first violation, $1,000 for the second. But that does require you that requires you to know you're breaking the law. So if Flora or I or someone from the city says this is legal to do, and ends up not being legal, there you aren't going to be able to be subject to that individual fine because you were listening to the advice of an attorney, and so you thought it, assuming the attorney said this is legal. So it's only knowing violations that are going to have that fine. The final consequence, of course, is the public trust that's undermined. I think I told you guys last time, this image here is an actual mailer from a case that I worked on where there was no alleged OPMA violation. There was a council fighting each other, so the witnesses against the council members were other council members. This was from a recall effort which failed, but it's worth noting that everybody who was involved in this dispute got voted out of office the next time they actually had to run. Both the people who violated the law or alleged to violate the law and the council members who were agitating for it. The public got sick of all of them. So definitely can be big consequences when the OPMA is violated or the public perceives you're violating it, which is all the more important to make sure we're following, dotting our I's and crossing our T's on it. So that's just kind of a rehash of what we talked about last time, going over these points with the new information with COVID, and really I think our main goal here is to make sure we answer y'all's questions if you have any, and then just to give you this reminder. So I will open it up to some questions.
This is Kari. And maybe it's a question for Peepa, Nicole, or the whole commission, but are we going to be live streaming the public meetings as we do these commission meetings?
Yes. And they'll, we're seeing if there's other platforms we can put these on as well. But right now we're pretty much on every platform. And so that's how it will be for the live public comment meetings as well.
Yeah,
for follow up on that one, would there be then a question, if someone is watching on Facebook, for example, would someone be moderating the comments on Facebook and then include those within hours if there's time?
Yeah, I mean, we can we'll collect the written comment that comes in and add it to our commentary file, but we don't have the staff to monitor multiple platforms. So we will find those comments following and pull them out for your review. But during the meeting, I am not going to say that that's possible. I won't rule it out completely, Kari, but unless I get a few really excited interns, I'm not sure it would be possible.
Nicole, I will rule it out.
Thank you.
That would actually, the problem, if we had comments on one forum, people who are watching it on another platform wouldn't be able to see those comments. And so your proposal of collecting them and sharing them with the commission afterward is fine, but we wouldn't want the commission to be accessing and responding to those comments live because people who are watching on other platforms wouldn't have access to those comments. So you don't want to do that.
So we would have to read them out loud.
Yeah, let's do that out loud. You need to make it available to everybody who's listening, whatever platform they're on. So that's why, discourage using anything like the chat functions, except for, the, procedural stuff or, like the Nicole's buffering type comments are fine, but we don't want to have substantive comments because the public doesn't have access to those. Same is true for these other platforms. So
I have one question. Nicole and Ramsey, I have a question. This is Ethel. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just want to make something clear for the public when they're involved in these meetings. I want to make sure that nobody has an opportunity to come back. So, well, this was unfair because I don't have access to this type of platform to listen to these meetings and feel like they've been left out. Are we prepared to handle that in any way, just in case it comes up and somebody says, I don't have a computer, I don't have a phone, I don't have a tablet or whatever, so I can actively be involved, and doing this is unfair. Are we prepared for that?
Great question, Ethel. And the short answer is yes. So we have to provide a place where people can call in to listen. So just like in a council meeting, Peepa, our wonderful behind the scenes person will be bridging between a call-in line and our meeting where she'll cast live. So people will be able to dial a phone number from a landline, flip phone, iPhone, whatever they have, to at least be able to listen to what is happening on the other end. And in that same note, they don't have to use the Teams client to provide public comment. They can call in via phone and do it that way as well. So I would prefer people use the team client so I can assign a name and an email to them very easily. But if you don't have access to that, then calling in is just as good. It's perfect.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we've got it clearly out there so no one can say they were overlooked. It's right there. There's no excuse to not be involved here.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I thought that was a great question. Any more questions on the Open Public Meeting Act or any of the above? Great. We have our plan. It's basically concrete now. So I'm going to start working on this and getting it out in public and working with our communications teams on a flyer. We'll make sure that we get our one pager out there as well so people can look at that, watch Tony's video. We'll distribute that at the council of neighborhoods, show them where that is, so people can start getting this information and call-in numbers and all that kind of stuff. We'll start getting that together. And with that, we can move on to Tony's piece in the meeting today.
All right. Well, there are just two pieces that are left unresolved. One piece we talked about the last meeting, which is the renaming or rechoosing of Northwest Everett and Delta core areas. And so I think we really should make a decision on one or the other. And so I'm putting it out there, I guess, for discussion, and I'm hoping that we can actually end with a vote or something, so then I can incorporate that into the video, whichever name we use or whatever we're going to use. So that's the first thing.
This is Kari. I'm fine with it being Delta. Realistically, when you're talking about cracking, that's the one that has had the most interest around it. Northwest can fit wherever it wants. I would allow, I mean, in the sense that North End to me still makes sense. Going forward, if in 10 years they look at this again and it doesn't make sense, then maybe it's different over there. I don't know. That's where I sit today.
Anyone else?
This is Ben. Are we simply just, we don't have a choice of names yet. We're just saying possible names, correct?
Well, the concept is the core area tends to stay inside the district over multiple cycles.
Understood.
And so by combining Northwest Everett / Delta or Delta / Northwest Everett, we're really saying that those two should remain intact. And so it may behoove us to actually name it one or the other, which opens up the door in the next round of redistricting for whatever they want to do, and not lock them and hamstring that commission, let's say, with whatever they decide.
I don't understand, Tony, the key point of trying to nail it down now because of what might change 10 years from now. I mean, really what we're talking about is North Everett, not Northwest Everett, not Delta. We're talking about North Everett. That's the area. And, but there is no North Everett neighborhood. North Everett is just North Everett. So if it has to be one or the other, I'll follow Kari's lead on it. But we're really talking about North Everett. That's District 1.
Right.
North District.
But what we've done in the other areas is we've picked a specific area or region, and we've established that as the core. So we said the district core is Lowell, the district core is Casino Road inside Westmont, or Silver Lake. And we've established that, a clear-cut area that theoretically, now this is not any tough line that we have to, the next time this is done, keep these areas together. If there's some compelling reason, the jurisdiction can decide to do away with that. But it's much easier when you don't have that tie-in. And of course, the reason why I'm saying this is because of what we've heard in the feedback from people in Delta. And so this opens up the door or the possibility for that to change in the future, the near future, or less likely that it will stay the same or be forced or compelled to stay the same, let me say. So that's the reason why. It's something that you're listening to the community and saying, okay, we hear you. It may not have ended up that Delta has its own separate district this time, but next year, and most likely, you probably will do another round of redistricting because of the deviations. Who knows what will happen?
Tony, this is Chris. Question for you. The more I've thought about it is, do we have to have cores? I understood that was part of your process in presenting a starting point, and then you build upon that. Is there a legal requirement? Is there some districting requirement that we have to have cores? What if we just don't? Here's the map. Here's the 5 districts. No one's locked into anything. What happens then?
Well, district cores are part of traditional redistricting criteria. So normally over cycle after cycle, cores are created, meaning that the courts have ruled, okay, it's good for districts not to change all willy-nilly, meaning that districts shouldn't just be reconfigured everywhere you can each time a redistricting cycle occurs. So you have what's called cores that sort of perpetuate that district from cycle after cycle. And of course, population changes, you may not be able to do that. And so, yes, we could do something like that, where we just say, here's District 1, this is it. I think it's much more logical if we actually establish a core and then build around that. It makes sense. There's some cohesive aspect. It doesn't mean that the next commission will change. There may be some compelling reason for them to say, no, we want to split Boulevard Bluffs core for some particular reason. And so they still can do that. Just the same thing with Northwest Everett and Delta. But I think it's a logical way of doing it. I think it's methodical. And I think usually you establish seeds for districts many times. The cores are the seeds of the district.
Chris,
it makes sense. It makes sense as you're saying logically, but it seems like this is like our contentious issue that we can't get past. And I'm just trying to brainstorm on ways that we can kind of, I don't know, not lock ourselves in or, just move forward in a way that kind of presents a nice plan that's not going to be so problematic and controversial, I guess.
I think we just need to make either Northwest or Delta the core, but not make them a combined core. That's what we're talking about right now. So just deciding which of those two is going to be called the core. And I think because this is the first time that this is being done, we should not back ourselves into a corner that every iteration beyond has to maintain that or has to come up with a really good reason why they wouldn't. So what's really on the table right now is just, do we make Northwest the core or do we make Delta the core? So that's what the discussion is on right now. So what we prefer on those two. I don't think we're going to throw out the whole idea of having cores at this point.
Chris raised a good question. And the other thing, let's let the next commission, and some of you may be on that, whenever that date will be, let them decide what those cores should be. Why should I thought Chris's point was well made. I know that there may not be a majority of you that feel that way, but I thought he made a good point. It was a good question.
I would agree with this is Ethel. I would agree with what you've said, Jim, and what Chris has said. My problem with going with saying Delta, then all of a sudden we get to meetings and then the people in Northwest are going to say, well, what about us? And then some of the people from Delta will move to another neighborhood and they'll want that neighborhood named after them as well. I think we're playing games here. And I think we need to stick with what we have. Maybe we'll do it Northwest/Delta or something like that. But I don't think we want to just say this is Delta, because then you're leaving Northwest out. And that's just a slam in the face.
We've done that on a lot of the other ones, because Lowell is one, Silver Lake is one, Casino Road, which is one of, Westmont is one. So the decision point that we're at right now is kind of one or the other as being that core.
I'm raising my hand here to chime in. I think that the neighborhood should be named after the largest neighborhood in the district. That would be Delta.
And I think that's a really logical conclusion to draw. I think that makes sense. If someone has a compelling reason why we shouldn't go with that, now's the time to discuss that.
Well, I guess ultimately I would just say that there's been some sentiment that the neighborhoods, as we've presented as being the communities of interest with such high importance in Everett, which I think frankly are pretty arbitrary, may not really be the best thing. And so I guess that's why I was kind of thinking, why does it have to be a neighborhood? Again, it's so contentious. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't probably matter. We can leave it to the next crew to rediscuss the Delta and Northwest Broadway division yet again, if we want. But I would agree. I think we should, if we're going to name it something, if we have to have a core, we should pick one or the other, or North Everett. And I don't see a problem with that personally, because that really does represent, kind of to Kari's point of let's come together and do what makes sense. But if we're trying to throw, let's put it on the table. If we're throwing Delta a bone that down the road they're going to be able to redistrict and get the way that they want it, okay, well, let's admit that we're doing that.
Well, the cores conversation came up initially. We had a lot of opportunities to discuss what the different cores could be, and we had a lot of other potential cores that were discussed, and the conversation always gravitated back toward using those neighborhood names. So it's a little late in the game, I'd say, for us to completely change that, because that's what we've been doing to this point. So I don't think it's throwing Delta a bone to name the district that, if a key decision point or a key reason why we do that is that it's the most populous neighborhood in that district. North Everett, I think, is a little too broad, because I consider North Everett everything north of 41st, and that would actually be partially 1 and 2. And we didn't, it's a little vague, but if that's what everyone wants, then we could call the whole entire district basically, North Everett, and that the core would just be the whole district. That's what gets tricky. So, we can bring up a third option, or we can just decide between the two that we already had narrowed it down to. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
This is Kari again. I think when Tony's been describing, he's called it the Northern District, as opposed to the southern part of the city. My comment back to Ben, I like that idea of population, but what it does as a conflict point or devil's advocate is that Lowell does not have a very large population, and it is currently defined as a core. So it breaks the rule already. But I guess really,
road is a road that we've cored as a single road.
Yeah, we've done something different for every single one, basically.
Yeah.
Well, then I don't know. Then do we have some choices here that we can actually say, hey, let's eliminate somebody? Because no one here seems to be giving an inch.
I don't have a stake in this game strongly. I'm just presenting some different alternatives, because this is like the issue of this whole districting cycle. And frankly, I'm kind of tired of it, but why don't somebody just make a motion and we'll vote? I'm fine with it. It seems like there's a lot of strong sentiment around Delta. So I'll put a motion in place that we rename District 1 Delta as the core.
I think
I can second that.
Clarification, we're renaming or we're actually making the core just Delta?
We're establishing Delta as the core would be the motion. We're not naming the districts. Okay, so do we want to open up more discussion on this since now there's a motion on the table?
What's wrong with North Everett?
It is another option that we could bring up, but I mean, it's another option.
When you think about the Northwest neighborhood, what have you forgotten about them?
I mean, we just had this conversation where we've named some of them after neighborhoods. It's just kind of what we've been doing. So we can do something different if that's what people want to do. But the motion on the table right now is whether we want to make Delta the core. So from your comment, I'm going to assume you're against making Delta the core and you want to eventually vote against it and then bring up another motion to do something different?
No, Simone, what I'm saying this whole time when we've been doing this, we've come down to the same thing. I agree with Chris. We've been arguing about the same thing. Delta, Delta, Delta. All of the emails we've gotten have been Delta, Delta, Delta. And I think when you do that, you're showing favoritism. And I honestly think this is where, I don't care what you guys say, gerrymandering, I know it backwards and forwards. I've lived through it. I know what happens. And that's exactly what happens here. So you've thrown one neighborhood to the curb, Northwest neighborhood.
Ethel, I'm sorry, but that's the point, is like the public comment that has been coming in is from a neighborhood that has historically been disenfranchised and is not the predominantly white neighborhood. They're the ones that are complaining. And so that's the point, is because we now realize the permanence of making that decision, combining them together, how many decades that's going to actually impact that neighborhood. It's more about the permanence of that decision. So I don't care if it's called Delta as the core. I don't care if it's called Northwest as a core. I only care that we do not put that in place where we do not allow them to have that change in that future. Just divide them. So,
you know,
at the end of the day, it's still going to be the same map that everyone's looking at, A8. It's not going to drastically change the map at this point. The only issue on the table is just deciding what the core is. So this isn't about one or the other. It's going to create gerrymandering. We just need to pick a core. And if we want to do a third option, we can do that.
It's already been seconded, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So this is the discussion.
We'll down and I'll document each person's vote.
Okay, perfect. So I guess we'll close discussion and vote. So Mary Fossey?
Yes.
Chris Gray?
Yes.
Jim Langus?
Yes.
Ethel McNeil?
Yes.
John Monroe?
Yes.
Kari Kwas?
Sorry, hold on.
Yes.
Simone Tarver? Yes. Ben Young?
Yes.
Julius Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, so we're unanimous in naming Delta the core of District 1, and so that's that. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and for, coming to a consensus on that.
Excellent. The second thing is the Lake Chaplain. Which district to tie that to? And one of the commissioners, Commissioner Wilson, had a great idea, which was leave it up to the public. I thought that was pretty good, until I began to think on the normal process is one, the area that's usually closest. If you have an annexed area, the areas that's closest, usually you tie that to the district. Or if you have something like a bridge or a tunnel that connects it, then that would attach it to the district. And so I wondered if there was something that connected Lake Chaplain to the city of Everett, and there's a pipeline. Actually, there are four pipelines. And 3 pipelines actually go to Riverside, and 1 pipeline actually goes to Lowell. So the logical conclusion in my mind would be to attach it to Riverside, and that really is District 1. So that's my thought process, and I wanted to hear you all ideas on that concept.
Does that change anything on compactness or anything else? Like, it doesn't have any impact on anything, right? Okay.
We run the compactness ratios without it because it's really a separate entity. We're just, it would be terrible compactness ratios if we actually ran that. Yeah.
Well, and I think your assessment's great. I think that's a great idea.
I agree. I think that makes the most sense. And in case anyone doesn't know, Lake Chaplin is way up by like Big Lake or something. It's a lake that the city owns, and there's no people that live there, and there will never be people that live there. It's just a random little lake that the city owns that we have to include, but it won't really have any impact on our map. But it has to go somewhere. So it can be District 1 works for me.
I make the motion to include Lake Chaplin in District 1 or Delta.
I'll second it. So we'll go down the list. Mary Fossey. Well, I guess I'll open it up to discussion. Does anyone want to discuss it further? Okay. Mary Fossey.
It would be Riverside, not Delta, because that's where he's saying it was connected.
Oh, it would be part of Riverside, but it would be included in District.
I'm just clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris Gray.
Yes.
Jim Lingus.
Yes.
Ethel McNeil.
Yes.
John Monroe.
Yes.
Kari Quas.
Yes.
Simone Tarver. Yes. Ben Young.
Yes.
Julius Wilson.
Yes.
Perfect. So Lake Chaplin's all taken care of.
Well, that's all I had.
And so unless there's anything else that you all want to discuss, we are adjourned much earlier than any other meeting I think we've ever had.
Yeah, I move to adjourn. Thank you so much, everyone, for the great discussion. I know that this is a very passionate bunch, but I appreciate all of you being here and all of the great contributions you've made to this process.
And so when is our next
Let's
meeting?
go before you change your mind.
Oh, so the next meeting, wait. Next meeting would be, do we have one on the 20th?
Let me just double check. I didn't usually I write it down beforehand. I didn't.
17th?
I thought it was the 31st.
Oh wow, you guys are all over the board. Yeah, it's the 31st. Julius is on it. He knows the word. He knows the business.
31st. So August 31st, same time, same place.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Let me know if you need anything. Oh, Mary.
Okay.
I do have a question about the Council of Neighborhoods for those of us that are on that. What is the protocol since you guys will be speaking at the next one? And I think we also have other commissioners that are on that.
I'm going to answer this, and Flora, listen for any corrections. I think we just need to be careful that you guys don't have a discussion or come to a consensus as a group. So if Kari and Simone are presenting, then it would be best if people that are commissioned didn't say things that might lead to like a decision being made. And so if someone asks a question, you might be able to answer it, but then I don't want Kari to say, oh, and either agree or capitalize or whatever on what you're saying. So we'll buffer that with staff. I'll be there too. So I'll make sure that those transitions are really clean so we can do that. But I do want you guys to feel open and have a full conversation. We just have to be careful with what that is. So, and we will be.
Nicole, do you know how much time we have on the agenda?
I thought it was 15 minutes, but I can check in with Julie about that.
Okay. Cool.
Alrighty, I move to adjourn. If no one has any comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Too bad. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Enjoy your week.